Welcome back to a Gaming with Spoons tier list video. In today's tier list video, we are going to be taking a look at Kingdom Hearts. Last time we did this for the channel, we took a look at Final Fantasy, and that was received very well. A lot of people really enjoyed that video, and it actually did quite a bit better than what I was initially thinking it was going to. So I thought it'd be fun to take a look into the Kingdom Hearts franchise and talk about this, as it's not a series I plan to review on the channel because it's a very oversaturated market on YouTube. That being said, tier list videos are something that I want to do more of other series, and we will at some point be doing one strictly for the East games as well. So you guys got that to look forward to, but let's dive in, not waste any more of your time, and start ranking some Kingdom Hearts. First up on the list is 358 over 2 days. I personally enjoy this game. I don't think it's the greatest Kingdom Hearts entry, but I don't think it's a bad game either. I feel like this is just kind of a solid B tier. It's got a really good story, and I think that's what I enjoy most about 358 over 2 days. I really liked the backstory that they gave Roxas, Axel, and the new character Xion, the relationship that those three had with each other, and the bonds and friendship that they formed really cemented their characters moving on into Kingdom Hearts 2. It gave this much needed background depth to these characters that I personally enjoyed. Now, on a gameplay side, it was very much held back by being a handheld game, as is going to become a common theme, I think, with a lot of these games we're going to be talking about. If this had been put on a console and given that console budget, I feel like they could have done a lot of cool things with it. But regardless, what we got was very, very exciting. It was also really cool to get a chance to see how some of the events played directly into Kingdom Hearts 3. How Riku kind of played like this background role to Sora waking up right after being in slumber from the events of Chain of Memories, and leading into those events, and kind of how he became who he was. It was a really interesting concept to explore, and I enjoyed what 358 over 2 days brought to the table. Birth by Sleep. Birth by Sleep, I'm going to put this in a B tier as well. I feel Birth by Sleep is a very, very, very high B tier. You know, let's say A tier, very low A tier. And the reason I feel that Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is held back is, again, simply it was put on a handheld platform. Had it been put onto the PlayStation 3, given that AAA budget, I feel like the game would have been a lot better. But again, it was held back by hardware limitations. What I did enjoy about Birth by Sleep, though, was this giving us these 3 brand new characters and making us attached to them by the end of the game. Birth by Sleep has a very incredible story, particularly how Aqua and Terra are almost opposites of each other, very much focused on the same things but driven by very different motives, and how their paths kind of took them down very, very rough patches going on down the road. I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end of Birth by Sleep, but the tragedies set up between those two heroes is something that just propels the series forward, and is something Kingdom Hearts 3 actually touched upon. And it was that moment in Birth by Sleep that I think made it such a memorable moment for me. It was definitely a tragic ending. Without spoiling too much about it, it was honestly what I enjoyed. I also liked getting a chance to see how the villain kind of came to be. The gameplay in of itself for a handheld console was very, very well done. I feel like a lot of the elements used in later Kingdom Hearts games when it came to its gameplay would be taken from Birth by Sleep and reused in some of those and refined in ways that would go on to define Kingdom Hearts 3. So next up on the list we've got Chain of Memories. Chain of Memories I'm going to put in C tier. I am not the biggest fan of Chain of Memories. There are multiple different reasons why I have a hard time with this game. Gameplay wise, I actually thought it was really good. This game in of itself felt like it was the one Kingdom Hearts game, and this might be weird to say, developed for a handheld game. I feel like the other ones tried to copy the formula of the other Kingdom Hearts games and put them on the handheld, and it held them back. But this one, at least gameplay wise, really seemed to focus on the idea, the concept that this was a game built strictly for a handheld system. Gameplay wise, very, very solid game. I didn't mind some of the card mechanics as much as some of other people did within battle. The slates, building your card deck, having cards higher than another card, being able to block it, zero being able to cancel those out. Those are all really unique concepts that I really enjoyed. I would actually like to see a game tackle some of those same ideas again. However, where I draw a problem with was the story, and it's because of how much it contrasted with the original Kingdom Hearts, right? The original Kingdom Hearts was a very happy game, despite some moments that were very, very heart-wrenching, very, very emotional moments. Kingdom Hearts overall played itself as this very melodramatic, very happy, Disney-esque world, right? Where not a lot of dark things happen, and you slowly start to see Sora's memory and chain of memories just disappear. Sora becomes less Sora, and it's really, really hard to watch. And in some ways, I respect the plot for being able to do that, but at the same time, to see your character you've played through the entirety of another game to, and see his memory, his state just deteriorate. It had this, I don't want to say dark, but almost very different tone to its storytelling. Riku, on the other hand, was the shining hero of that game. Being able to play through Riku's side of the story and see his descent from darkness that he took in Kingdom Hearts 1 into darkness, and then his redemption to light, and how he was able to conquer that darkness inside him, was an excellent, well done story. Riku's story, hands down, probably the best part of Chain of Memories right there. Riku, a lot of reasons why Riku became my favorite character was because of his arc inside of Chain of Memories. A very well done story. Now, I have not played too much of the remake of Chain of Memories, but I have heard it's worse in some ways than the GameCube, or not GameCube, the Game Boy. I'm just going to place this in C tier because I don't feel confident enough in what I've played to say, yeah, total, D tier. I don't think that's fair. Let's dive into the next game, though, and talk about a Fragmentary Passage. This was a game coupled in with 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue that came with Dream Drop Distance on the PlayStation 4. I really enjoyed this game. I'm going to put this in... I'm going to put this in A tier. It's a short experience and very, very, very short, but the time that I spent with that, I really enjoyed. For one, we got to see what the Dark World looked like for the very first time. We'd seen it in cinematics, we'd seen it in the little hidden trailers or hidden things at the end, but we never really got a chance to explore it. We also got a chance to explore worlds that had been consumed by the Dark World, right? Being able to explore Dream Castle, Cinderella's world, and getting that look into how the darkness kind of warped the way that world looks, right? Not to mention the game was just absolutely beautiful, and being able to get a chance to play as Aqua again was really, really cool. I also loved how they tied the ending of a Fragmentary Passage directly into Kingdom Hearts 1, right? Where it kind of tied those two games together and really kind of cemented the connection that those two games had. There are a lot of other cool things that the game did. I feel like it was a very transitionary stage into the gameplay combat that we would get from Kingdom Hearts 3, but I overall really enjoyed a Fragmentary Passage. it was a very big surprise that I wasn't expecting to enjoy as much as I did. Kingdom Hearts 2, guys, come on. This is an S tier game. Kingdom Hearts 2 is the staple of the franchise. This is the best of the best. Kingdom Hearts 2, in my opinion, is still the best entry in the series today. I absolutely love the combat. I love the story. I love the choice of Disney worlds. I love the writing Organization 13 as a villain set up this very interesting mystery to be resolved. You know, what was Organization 13? There's a lot of really great moments in this game, and this is also why I consider this to be one of my top 10 RPGs of all time. Kingdom Hearts 2 is just a very satisfactory experience. It was more or less what I enjoyed of Kingdom Hearts 2. Despite a few small, very, very small complaints I do have about some of the choices in the Disney worlds and how they executed the story and how I wish they would have done things differently. We'll get into that when we talk about Kingdom Hearts on this tier list. But overall, it upped the gameplay in every way. The triangle buttons that they added, the little commands you can use, the triangle buttons, were absolutely awesome, and overall, I loved my time with this game. Kingdom Hearts 2 is such a grand adventure. It took everything I loved from the first game and did it better. Plus, introducing Tron as a world was absolutely awesome. I love the Tron movies. Yes, I say movies. I even like Tron Legacy, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, actually, but Kingdom Hearts 2, definitely up there in terms of one of the best Kingdom Hearts games ever made. Oh boy, Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3, this does not deserve a D tier. This does not deserve a D tier, and I am not the biggest fan of Kingdom Hearts 3. There is a lot wrong with this game. There's a lot the game does right though, and this is going to be a hard entry for me to place. Objectively, when it comes to gameplay, Kingdom Hearts 3 is an A tier. When it comes to the way it handled its gameplay, evolved its gameplay, I feel it did a lot of things right. I feel it dumbed down the gameplay a little bit too much, but there were elements that they added into it that I enjoyed. Hence the being able to have that little shooter thing in Toy Story, in the Toy Story world, right, where you would hop into the mech and fire your enemies. That was a really cool concept. Being able to see Keyblade transformations and have these rides pop up was again a really cool concept. But as more and more of this came on, I felt the higher in level you got, the more and more powerful those became. You didn't need them as much to defeat enemies. You were able to blow through hordes and hordes of enemies, and it just kind of felt like a waste to see this play over and over. So that was some problems I had with the gameplay, but satisfactory. The way the gameplay played was actually really good. I was very satisfied with the way that they did the gameplay for the most part in Kingdom Hearts 3. So if I were to base Kingdom Hearts 3 specifically off of objectivity with its gameplay, it is an A tier. However, as a whole package, Kingdom Hearts disappoints because it's in its choice of Disney worlds where I feel it faltered. It's also in its choices of pacing and story that I have my biggest issues with this game. Kingdom Hearts 3 effectively took the entire concept of Disney worlds and used them as padding. There's a point in the story, I won't spoil it, where the whole premise of Sora going into these Disney worlds is to find the power of waking. There's literally no reason for Sora to go to these Disney worlds. The only reason the Disney worlds are there is because, oh, this is Kingdom Hearts and we need Disney worlds because this is Kingdom Hearts. The plots feel like they were stripped right out of the movie. When you go to Tangled, you're not seeing Sora interact with the Tangled cast like he has done the other games. You're seeing Sora essentially make a few comments and watch the entire scenario play out. The movie still plays out very similar to the events that would happen. There's nothing really making them slightly different. I feel like this was something Disney wanted, right? They're like, you're going to use our properties, you're going to represent the movies. This is going to be a giant advertisement for our movies, right? Frozen was a huge example of this. Was there ever a reason to put in Let It Go into that game? It's like, seriously, Sora sums it up perfectly. Wow. I don't know what we just saw, but wow, like that was my literal reaction watching Elsa walk up the peak singing, which is sad. Arendelle feels like there was actually a very much darker story implanted in that world, but it almost feels like Disney kind of came in like, no, you're not going to take one of our most beloved movies and turn it into something different. Frozen 2's coming out. Why don't you use that as a giant advertisement for for Frozen 2? Honestly, its world choice felt limited. Like Disney was trying to get their grubby little hands in how much freedom Square Enix was going to have. Then there's the whole pacing fact, as I said, that felt like that was just really extra padding. The Disney worlds felt so disconnected when the additional members of the new Organization 13 showed up into the plot. They kind of just felt like added baggage, like they didn't really belong there. It wasn't really necessary. It was just moments like that in the game that really kind of took me out of the immersion and took away from a lot of my enjoyment. What I did enjoy was the ending, but again, I have a problem with the ending because of how rushed it felt. It felt like it was trying to rush to get to this conclusion, and the ending should have been paced out more than what it was. Kingdom Hearts 3 has made it so I really haven't wanted to pick up the DLC. I haven't played Melody of Memories. I have no desire to play Melody of Memories because it is a mobile game, not a mobile game, a rhythm game, and I'm not the biggest fan of rhythm games. Being honest, I don't know how I feel about Kingdom Hearts going forward because of Kingdom Hearts 3, and I think I'm just going to have to wait and see what Kingdom Hearts 4, if and when Square Enix decides to make that in the next 20 years, whether or not, you know, I'll be excited for that or not. But as it stands right now, Kingdom Hearts 3 really burned me when it came to my enjoyment, and in all honesty, it's killed a lot of excitement that I've had for this series going forward. I'm not placing this in B and D tier, but I can definitely say I didn't enjoy this game whatsoever in the slightest. Chain of Memories, maybe I enjoyed slightly better in terms of everything. But Kingdom Hearts 3 really left this fan disappointed, and I'm hoping Square Enix can take Kingdom Hearts into a different direction with an upcoming sequel that does bring me back into the fold. But as it's looking right now, yeah, Kingdom Hearts left some pretty bitter tastes in my mouth. All right, Kingdom Hearts 1. You know what? Okay, this goes in S tier. Kingdom Hearts started the franchise. I'm very nostalgic towards this game, which is probably why it's ranking S tier instead of A tier. If we are talking, some of the mechanics from Kingdom Hearts have not aged the greatest. I can personally look past them like I can with Super Mario 64 and how some of the controls in that game aren't as good as they were back in the day. They were very much held back by limitations or learning how to create a game right with that particular mindset. Kingdom Hearts 2, we established, came along and took a lot of the ideas that I enjoyed from Kingdom Hearts and refined them and made them better. But purely nostalgic, I really enjoy Kingdom Hearts. I also really enjoy its story. Its story was very unique, and it probably is the best game out there that had the best representation of Disney worlds when it came to having creative freedom and how they were able to incorporate the plots of the Heartless and the Disney villains working towards this common goal of hunting down the princesses of heart. It was just a really cool concept for a game, and it's something that the other games kind of moved and abandoned, right? That's kind of part of what I was trying to hint at when I said with Kingdom Hearts 2 and some of its world choices, is this kind of does start to feel like the point where Disney's like, yeah, follow these stories a little bit better. Whereas Kingdom Hearts 1 had a lot more range to use the stories and the plots within the movies to kind of tie them into the bigger narrative. I really respected that about Kingdom Hearts, and being able to see all of the Disney villains, Maleficent, Ursula, Jafar, Oogie Boogie, all working together under this common goal to bring the princesses of heart to them, hunt down the Keyblades, all this. It was cool to see kind of like this giant crossover / Disney, good guys versus bad guys. I really enjoyed what the original Kingdom Hearts set up, and just a very nostalgic title for me. Recoded is another game that seems to divide the fan base. And if I'm being honest, I think the reception towards this was better received when it was strictly a mobile game, right? This was originally a game put onto flip phones that was remade and brought over to the Nintendo DS. The problem a lot of people have, and I have with Recoded, is how complicated its story gets. Particularly because it sets up this idea of being in the digital world, and when you kind of cross like all of this different things going on, you have time travel and the data world and the dark world and the light world and all this other stuff. That's when Kingdom Hearts' plot really started to get super complicated, and it's kind of like, I feel like this was that defining moment that people who aren't hardcore Kingdom Hearts fans like to look at and poke fun of. I feel like this was the game that kind of started that, yeah, look at how crazy the story's got, right? That said, there are some really cool scenes and ideas that do come from this game that I really did enjoy. And I think actually its hidden scene towards the end of the game was very satisfactory if you took the time to get that. I mean, I'm going to put this in B tier. Like, that's very, 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 very low B tier. And I know that's kind of a controversial opinion, considering taking a look at what's in C tier, people are going to be like, really? You're going to put Recoded over Kingdom Hearts 3? At least it was able to hold my interest. At least it felt like it was staying true to some of the characters. At least there was some enjoyment and better pacing, sort of. At least I felt with Recoded. I liked the gameplay in Recoded too. I kind of like how each world had its own different section. Like Hollow Bastion had that 2D platformer. Olympus Coliseum had the turn-based game you'd play within the Coliseum while Hercules was in your party. That was really cool. I kind of like how they tried to make each world feel unique. And that probably comes back from, I don't know, doing something similar to, 3D platformers where like hub worlds and like each world kind of had like a different theme or a different mechanic that might be introduced in those worlds. I just thought it was really, really cool to see that. So, kudos to the developers for trying something different. Again, that was a mobile game at first, so it's kind of hard to critique that game specifically for that reason, because it was a remake of a mobile game that was very set up for mobile games. But I enjoyed it. What can I say? Alrighty, Union Cross, whatever the heck it's called now, this game that's no longer actually going to be up to play on mobile phones. The game, I feel, that effectively started turning the franchise to this downward spiral. Guys, I'm going to put this in D tier. Now, let's talk a little bit about my problem with this game as a Kingdom Hearts fan. Longtime subscribers will know I have a giant bias towards mobile games. I am not a fan of them in the slightest. I see them as nothing more than a simple cash grab. I see them as nothing more than a way for developers to try and slide foul practices into video games. You know, mobile games have popularized the ideas of microtransactions. Let's not get down that rant. Let's strictly stick to this. But this, out of everything, felt like it was held back the most. I would have enjoyed had this just been put on a mobile console. I would have enjoyed had this just been put on something like Steam, had it not been so visually distant from the other Kingdom Hearts games. It felt like a missed opportunity to make an MMO with Kingdom Hearts. And I know there's a bunch of people out there who enjoy this game. As a matter of fact, when this game was announced, I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what? Being a Kingdom Hearts fan, I'm going to try it. And I sunk a good 15 hours into the game before I finally shelved it. My wife, who was also a Kingdom Hearts fan, put it up after 10. I tried harder to get into it than she did, and I eventually just got burnt out. It came to this point where the gacha mechanics became too invasive, like any other mobile game out there. Also, this idea that they put this backstory into Union Cross or Kingdom Hearts XG, whatever it was called, and used elements of Kingdom Hearts 3 to bring that back in and tie that to the narrative, that's what really pissed me off, especially where Square Enix was saying, this isn't going to be relevant to the story, you're not going to have to play this. Now the only way people are going to be able to get that backstory and understand what's going on in these games is watching hours upon hours of YouTube videos of subscribers talking about analyses of this game or watching cinematics, and that's really, really dumb. The concept of the Keyblade Wars was really cool too, and it's just sad to see it put down in such this state. Dream Drop Distance. You know, it surprises me. I know a lot of people who really enjoy this game, and I know not a lot of people, but there's a few people who don't like this game as much as some of the others, and that actually surprises me, because I feel Dream Drop Distance was a very solid return to what Kingdom Hearts was. And it would take a lot of ideas that were used into Kingdom Hearts 3, such as the flow motion and using your environments in order to make attacks happen. And it was once again one of those games that allowed you to play as Riku and Sora, which was a really nice added bonus. You know, someone who really enjoyed Riku as a character, being able to get a chance to play as him yet again was really, really cool. A tier. Yeah, I can put this in A tier. I can definitely justify putting that in A tier. So overall, the reason I think Dream Drop Distance for me really hit was because I also enjoyed its story. Its ending left me a little bit frustrated, particularly with how they started introducing time travel and these events leading into Kingdom Hearts 3. I feel like that's kind of what derailed the franchise into insanity at that point, where they had that time travel ending thing happen. Spoilers, I guess, because we're gonna have to talk about it for me to make my point. But Xehanort traveling back into the past and getting all these different versions of himself throughout the years to be his 13 Vessels of Darkness was just weird. Just weird beyond belief. However, I did like how this moment they gave Sora, who was this character always full of life and energy, this flaw, right? Why he couldn't become a Keyblade Master. It was kind of cool to see this concept of just because you're always filled with light and goodness, that can be a good thing, but it can also make you susceptible. And it was kind of cool to be able to see Riku step in and obtain the Keyblade Master through his actions of saving Sora from Xehanort and trying to consume him into darkness. So, yeah, taking a look back at the tier list, I mean, honestly, I'm satisfied with where it was. There's been a lot of good entries. There's a few of these entries you could probably interchange depending on my mood. I don't want to say too much more about Kingdom Hearts 3. I kind of already trashed that in this video. But just overall, I still love the series. And honestly, it's a series that is going to stick with me for quite a while. Kingdom Hearts has been a series that has got me into where I am today. It's a series that I owe a lot of the reasons that I am big into Japanese RPGs. It was actually the first Kingdom Hearts that got me to go back and play Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy VII, because I was curious who Squall was, because at the time Kingdom Hearts came out, I was in the middle of playing Final Fantasy IX. So I didn't have a PlayStation 2 and could only play those at a friend's house who did. So that was something else. And, you know, it is what it is, and I think it's a very enjoyable series. I can get why some people don't like it. Sometimes the quirkiness, the humor, the over melodramatic tones that are used hold the game back in some ways for people being able to have access to it, but overall I found it to be very, very, very enjoyable. Let me know down below where you would rank the Kingdom Hearts games. Feel free to use the tier list, and I'll leave it in the description as well for you guys to check out. If you guys want to see more videos like this, more tier list videos, let me know. I am open to doing some other tier list, ranking dungeons, RPG characters, things like that, into a tier list, but I do want to, every so often, especially with bigger franchises, kind of break them down structurally and do what we've done with Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Have these talking points where we kind of rank them from best to worst, and kind of get an idea of where I place them, and, you know, where you guys kind of place them too, because, again, as I said, you know, I hope you take the time to participate in this as well, and let us know down below in the comments what your favorite Kingdom Hearts games are. I'm actually kind of curious to see how many people agree with me on Kingdom Hearts 3, but also how many people disagree with me. Keep it civil, because people are going to have different opinions, but that'll about conclude it for this video. So social media links, all of that fun stuff, going to be down below in the description box. Most importantly, guys, stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out.